To keep us on track, we have the lovely Miss Angela Boersma with us. She is owner architect for ID8 Architecture and one of our Brookings County Commissioners. So Angie, without further ado, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kelsey. Welcome, everyone. We're super happy to have you here. We're going to dig right in because the time is tight, and so I want to make sure we get to as many bills as we possibly can. So we'll start with opening remarks, and I'm going to turn it over to begin with Senator Smith.
Good morning. I assume everyone can hear me. I got a challenge here a few minutes ago that I can't be brief, but I think I can. Starting my second term in the Senate, right now I am a member of the Military Affairs Committee. I'm a member of the Senate Education Committee. I'm a member of Health and Human Services Committee, and I chair the Senate Ag and Natural Resources Committee. And so I have a full plate. I'm not going to go into much more of an introduction, but I had to smile when I got home on Friday. I had a message. You get a lot of messages, so I had a message, and the person said, spoke their piece about a particular piece of legislation, and then ended with, have one of your people get back to me. Well, it would either be our cat, our dog, or my wife. And so we as legislators in South Dakota, it being a citizen legislature, sure, we have the LRC, the staff, but for the most part, we're kind of on our own on looking through bills and asking LRC for some assistance. But I see right now we have probably in the area of close in on 400 bills to look at. So frankly, a lot is going on up here. So it was good to come home, head out tomorrow, and so just trying to do the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Representative Reed.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's great that we can at least get together virtually to discuss the issues and what's all happening in Pierre. You know, Senator Smith just got done saying, 400 bills. I think we all went in thinking there won't be quite as many bills this year just because of the issues with COVID and such. Well, that didn't come true. A lot of those bills, well, first of all, I guess I'll let you know the committees I serve on are local government and then commerce and energy. A lot of those bills that have come in just in the last week are going for kind of the feeding trough for money. You know, we've got a lot of one-time funds available this year. And so a lot of the bills that came in are looking for funds for projects all around the state. It's going to take this big grand bargain to figure out what that, you know, how that's all going to look. And that's a grand bargain within our individual chambers, within the legislature themselves to figure it out, and then also with the governor. And so it's going to be an interesting process this year. It's going to be great that we can do a lot of projects around the state, but it's going to be quite the discussion. Let's just put it that way on where those funds are going to go. Just one comment that I see happening in the next couple of weeks is a lot about local control. Just from my days in city government, I've always been pro local control. And there's some bills out there to take away control from cities and school boards and such. And so I'm going to be really fighting hard to make sure those bills don't happen. And just on a good note, hey, we're all staying healthy out there. I don't think that I know of anybody. I know when we got started, we had one member of the House who had COVID or was in, I'm not sure if they had it or if they were just in quarantine. And they really showed up just a few days later. And otherwise, I do not know of any members becoming ill. And I do know, a lobbyist who I was communicating with and just said, the person I'm living with out here in Pierre tested positive. So I'm not able to come to the Capitol. So everybody's being real smart. And it's good that we're all, so far, staying healthy. So I'll just stop with that and look forward to talking to you about some of the specific issues.
Thanks, Representative Reed. We'll conclude opening remarks with Representative Tiedemann.
Thank you, Angie. And it's good to be back in Brookings. It's home is a very welcome sight. As the other two legislators have said, it's kind of at the point where it's wrapping up. I mean, it's really going to be a lot busier now. The first bills had to be in, the unlimited number, and this coming week we'll have the final drop of our last 3 bills if we want to. I serve on taxation, transportation, military veterans affairs, and also on retirement laws. It's unique this year that both the Speaker and the President pro tem have decided to send the appropriations bills, those that have requests for dollars, to policy committees first before they go to appropriations. That may work in a normal year. I think it's going to cause a lot of a log jam as we move through the process, because they have to all be able to cross over at some point in time from one chamber to the other. And when you send it to policy and then send to either the Senate appropes or House appropes, that's one more step. I suggested that they follow the other rule, that it just goes straight to joint appropriations. People don't have to come multiple times to see it. The other unique thing is that from when I served in the past, we're now using more technology to get people to sign on to bills. I miss going and visiting one-on-one, but then again with COVID, it's hard to recognize some of the folks because we all have masks on and are trying to protect the other person as we go about doing our business. I look forward to questions that we have this morning, and we'll turn it back to Angie.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. With the kind of opening remarks and discussion of COVID, we're going to start there this morning. So with Brookings leading the state on having a mask mandate, do you support the bill calling for a statewide mask mandate? Well, let's start with Representative Reed.
Well, I tell you, cut out just at the very end of what you were saying there, but I think you were talking about the statewide mask mandate. I support what we're doing here in Brookings, and as I talked before, I want to protect our rights to do what we need to do here in Brookings. I'm just not a fan of one size fits all. I think different communities, have to do what they think is important. And so I'm not in favor of a statewide mask mandate. I wish that everybody would take masks more seriously. I think it would help, as is shown in Brookings data. We had the situation where we had, K through 12 coming up at the same time we had all the college students returning. And so I thought our city leaders, and that's whether it's the school district and the university and then the city proper itself, got together and said, what's the best plan for Brookings? And we executed that plan, and now we've kept deaths the lowest and the number of cases the lowest in the state. And so while I don't agree with a statewide mask mandate, I just don't want to see cities not able to do mask mandates.
Representative Tiedemann, anything from you?
Well, I agree with what Representative Reed said. I believe in local control, and I think that one size doesn't fit all. It's a great idea to be discussing, but again, I would prefer that we just leave it to local control.
Any other thoughts, Senator Smith?
Well, I hate to say I agree with those people, but I certainly agree with it. There's philosophical differences on local control, and I struggle at times with decisions made in distant capitals, whether they be Pierre or Washington, D.C., as to how locals should do their business. And Brookings did take a courageous stand, and whether you liked it or not, it worked. And I'm going to say this about my colleagues, Tim and Larry. We wear our masks in that Capitol religiously. The only time I remove mine is when I blow my nose. The minute I get out of the car to the minute I get back to my car, that mask is on. And there are many legislators that do the same thing, and they're very respectful about it. And so I appreciate those individuals who do. I'm not going to say anything about those who don't, but we understand the people back home, and I hope they look at us and say, we're trying to protect ourselves and our families and our neighbors. Thank you.
Angie, can I just add one more thing on the wearing of masks? I applaud VJ. He keeps on all the time, but every so often there's a situation where we might have our masks off, whether it to be, and VJ does very good, doesn't eat snacks or anything. Maybe we're having water, snacks, things like that. You're going to find there's been pictures out there of, they say they're going to wear a mask, but they're not wearing a mask. We wear both Representative Tiedemann and I wear a mask as much as we possibly can. But there are times, and when I speak on the floor, it's hard to speak through those masks. I struggle with it. So that's one time I do take them off. Or if I'm close enough to the mic in committee, sometimes I can keep it on, or when I vote, I keep it on. But we're really working hard to do the best that we possibly can. I applaud Senator Smith. He does probably the best of anyone in the Capitol.
To follow up a little bit on that, House Bill 1093 states that a municipality's actions to suppress disease may not prohibit or interfere with activities of any privately held business, among other things. What do you feel would be the full effect of that bill, and does it seem to have likely support from the legislators? After last year's ban on bans, is there further appetite to take away local control? So it's kind of a stacked question, but specifically related to local control, the ability to suppress disease may not prohibit the actions of private businesses. So I don't know if you'd like to start on that one, or Senator Smith.
Yeah, I'll just be very brief here. I apologize. Oftentimes, you're more familiar with the bills in the chamber of origin, and so this is a House bill, and you normally don't get up to speed unless it passes that chamber and comes over to your neck of the woods. But I got to tell you, I struggle when my Republican colleagues argue that we ought to do something at a statewide level and dictate to municipalities what they should or shouldn't do. We talk about, when we're on the campaign trail, about the importance of local control. And, and people in their own communities ought to make their own decisions. And to me, this goes contrary to that. And I think it was the ban on bags, not the ban on bans. I think and that's what I argued on the floor. Someone from Mobridge, South Dakota, should have no say-so in whether Brooking, South Dakota does any particular thing. At least that's my belief. And so I believe that the local decisions are the best decisions. Thank you.
Representative Reed.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. It's going to come into local government here. It's where it's been assigned. It's a House bill. We talked about the local control aspect already, so I won't go over that. In there it says the freedom of speech, which hasn't been stopped. Peacefully assemble. At one time, the city council was looking at trying to limit sizes of gatherings in private residence. Well, that everybody knew wouldn't fly. It's just not constitutional. It's not the way that we are. It just gets into the whole private business aspect of it, which basically is taking a shot, at masks. I will say that I think it'll go through local government, and I'm not sure if it'll pass. I'll be speaking against it. I've been preparing for that for the whole summer because I knew this was going to come up. All the time we had the masks, I've been collecting data and we'll be ready to talk about it. So that I'm not 100% sure what'll happen there. It could be tight, whether it gets out of the chamber or not. And then as far as on the House floor, it'd have a chance on passing. And so so does it have a chance of some legs? It has some legs. There are a group of people that are so anti-mask that they care about everybody else's business so much that they're against it. So I'll be opposing it.
Representative Tiedemann, any further thoughts?
Well, I agree. As I read the bill, it's kind of taking power away from local control because instead of shall, it says may, which reduces some of the strength in the law. I think if you look at who the sponsors are, they're very much the group that wants to, individual rights and things of that nature, and they speak of the Constitution for their backing. I too will oppose the bill. I think that we want to keep the power at the local level.
Awesome. We're going to switch gears a little bit here. Senate Bill 68 is a charter school bill. What are your thoughts and views on this bill and opening the doors to charter schools in South Dakota?
I take it that's coming my way.
It is.
I will tell you that last year there was a Senate Bill 66, and it was for the Ochikowan possibility of a community school in Todd County. And I was proud of what happened in the Senate. We called it the Lazarus Bill in committee because it kept dying and coming alive, kept dying and coming alive. And then when it hit the Senate floor, it passed 35-0. Rarely do you get anything 35-0. But for me, it was one of the most emotional moments I've ever had in that chamber. And what it basically is, Native people in Todd County have watched the failures of the current system. And they're tired, I'm getting emotional now, but they're tired of seeing their kids get lost and the problems that they've had. And here was this group of people that came to the microphone last year and this year in committee and pleaded that they said, we want to do something differently. We want to teach our children in their Native traditions, teach Native language, along with English language, but make them feel a part of their past and move forward. All that bill does, it's now 68, and it's going to come up on the floor on Monday. And I got to tell you, Senator Heiner gave me an incredible honor when he asked me to speak first on that bill. I'm pretty passionate about this one. I'm sorry. So next.
I just think it's important to, when Senator Smith talked about Senator Heinert, he is the majority leader, but he's also Native American, and he's been working on this really hard. I think we had some issues last year in the House that caused political reasons, maybe that it was stopped. So it's going to be, I'm open. I've been listening to Senator Smith talk about this quite a bit, and definitely I'm open to it. I want to keep studying the issue and just listen to everybody. I don't think last year we listened enough to all the people on what to do. So there's a good chance I'm gonna be supporting it. Yes, it does open the door to charter schools. We have to realize that that's an argument that was used against it from the Republicans, who have always been pro-charter school, which was very interesting last year. But I just think we'll be smarter about it this year. I think a better job's been done on explaining it. So, we'll see what happens after. I'm pretty sure it's going to get through the Senate, and hopefully it just gets a fair chance in the House.
Representative Tiedemann, any thoughts?
Well, I love the passion that Senator Smith has about this bill. I'd be interested in listening to the debate on the floor and to see what happens when it comes across to the House. I know that in the past we've tried numerous approaches to help serve the Native American schools across the state. And one of the things we've seen is that it has not raised their scores. There's different approaches that have been tried. You know, I'm willing to give it a try if it's going to help. I agree with Representative Smith, or Representative Reed, that there is an issue with charter schools that could be kind of the stumbling block as we go forward. But we have to evaluate, will this be a possibility to assist those students that are attending the native schools?
Thank you. We're going to stick with education for a little bit, so I'm going to tee up Senator Smith for another one. Civics education has gained a great deal of emphasis. This proposal to appropriate $900,000 of one-time support for more training and education on South Dakota history and constitutional history for teachers and students. Do you think there are legs for that? And what are your thoughts on the appropriation specific to civics? Is there a chance to create similar appropriation for something like early childhood education?
Well, I appreciate the question. You know, I remember 2 years ago in Governor Noem's address, she spoke of the importance of increasing the knowledge in our young people with respect to civics and history and government. And I'm all for that. You know, and then the question is, how do we do it? I understand that this is different, and I think the worry, and because Department of Education Secretary Sanderson was interim secretary, was in front of our committee on Thursday, and you know, the question that was thrown out was that are we going to share the good and the bad in terms of our history, to create a balance and show where we've fallen and shown where we've done great things. But I shared this too, and I think a lot of people that are listening to this will come along with me. You know, I didn't learn my love of country sitting in an 8th grade civics class. I didn't learn a love of country in a junior, when I was a junior in government class. I learned my love of country from veterans that I watched when I was a young boy in Eureka, South Dakota, at Veterans Day programs and Memorial Day programs and 4th of July celebrations, and because they had gone out, they'd won a world war, and also the Korean War veterans. That's where I got my patriotism from. I know it. I saw the reverence that they had for the flag, but more than that, for the people who fought for that flag. So I know probably can't be taught, and I will trust, because I've heard the type of individuals who will be involved in this project if it goes through, and I think they'll try to be fair. I really do in what they produce. So. Obviously, the details haven't been rolled out yet. It's just a concept. I'll hold my, as Representative Tiedemann always tells me, keep your powder dry. And so I'll see what happens. But I appreciate the question.
I'm going to turn it over to Representative Tiedemann.
Well, thank you, VJ, for sharing that comment. I think you'll find that there's not a specific bill. It's in the supplement to the current general bill that will be taken up. It's $900,000 in there for the civics. I guess I go back to my 6th grade when I learned about South Dakota history, because we had to have that in the 6th grade at that time, and found that very beneficial to learn about South Dakota. Creating that curriculum for that will be the biggest challenge, to make sure that it's balanced, put together properly, and that it still meets the criteria of the Department of Education. So I think it's still there. Again, there's not a specific bill at this time. I know that some of the appropriators want to pull out certain items from that supplemental bill because they think they deserve more discussion than just when you're taking the one major amendment to last year's general bill.
Representative Reed, further thoughts?
Oh, thank you. And, I agree with all what's been said. I just, my kids are not that far out of the K through 12 system. It seems like they have learned a lot of, what we're talking about in discussions that we've had, and a lot of this is just as well learned around the dinner table. I think that's an important spot. I also work with Scouts. I do the Citizenship in the Nation and the Citizenship in the Community Merit Badges for them. And I think a lot of that is just having discussions and showing them. So, the $9,000 really surprised me. But I'm kind of one of those that, well, if they're going to put extra money into the school system, let them put it in there. But I hope that they're talking to the instructors now and making sure that we're not throwing one more thing on top of them when they have been doing what they really do need to be doing. And so that's why I'll be watching it. But as Representative Tiedemann said, this is all wrapped up in that amendment, and if it gets pulled out, then there'll be a hearty discussion about it. If it's not, it kind of just gets slipped in the whole package. And there's probably some parts of that amendment bill that we really want to make sure that we do get done. So it'll be part of that discussion as much as an up and down vote.
I want to add a little bit to that. In the initial question, part of the concern was also whether or not you see any potential for early childhood education additional expenditures to be one-time funds. Is that a possibility as far as you have seen or heard? Anyone?
I can start that off. No, I haven't heard of one-time funds going to that. I think the next step for early childhood education is to get the council going. And I had heard there would be a bill on that. And been skeptical and trying to figure that out last couple of years, but it is something that I definitely would support. I think that's the next, good first step on trying to figure out how does this best work in South Dakota. And one-time funds would just be do it for 1 year and then you're done. And so when this is done, it has to be done properly and it has to be figured out a funding source so it continues, is the way that I look at it.
Senator Smith or Representative Tiedemann, either of you have comment on the early childhood component?
My comments would simply echo Tim Reed's.
Ditto.
You guys make it easy. We're going to do a little shift. Representative Reed recently introduced several bills dealing with how meetings held remotely can be managed. So House Bill 1117, 1127. Similar House Bills 1128 and 29 addressing many of those same issues were dropped at the same time. So the question is, does LRC make legislators aware if someone else is proposing comparable legislation, first of all? And second of all, whose bill modifying SDCL 1-25-1.1 is better? Yours or Representative Maloney's?
Mine is, of course. So let's back up and talk about my two bills. These were developed by the Municipal League. So they were actually developed through talking with cities. And I think the county also always works very closely with the Municipal League. Mine two are pretty specific. One had to do with just the way that voting's being done to make sure it's codified. If you're in a remote meeting, instead of calling roll call, vote, what you can do is wait for somebody to dissent, and then you call a roll call vote. So it just puts that in code. So set that one aside. The next one, which is probably a little more controversial, has to do with it saying that you can have a completely remote meeting. And that's happening now because the governor did an executive order that said it was okay. So a city council really could completely be meeting virtually. There's no location for it. That was a little more controversial because there's no sunset on it. It's just saying we can continue to do this. And I think it's going to have a good discussion in local government, whether or not government should be doing this. Should we, we're going to enter a whole, we're going to get through this COVID, with the vaccines and everything. And then what are we going to do? And all of a sudden, are we going to just want to start doing everything virtually online? Is that good? Is that bad? So I'm looking forward to the discussion on that bill. The other two bills I haven't studied real hard. They had actually started with Representative Howard, and they just recently got moved over to Representative Mullally. So I got to step through them. There were probably some pretty good things in those bills also. The Municipal League was was going, there's probably some good ideas in there, so we'll have to take a look, at those more thoroughly. And I don't know if they modified the part about meetings or not. I have to study them side by side, and I have not done that yet. But they'll come to local government, so I'll be taking a good look at them. That's one. The bill, what I talked about with complete remote meetings, those are the kind of ones you don't hear much about, from people, and that would be a good one to hear from people, what they think about the ideas of having remote meetings, not just the county commission and not just our city council, but what do the people think? Journalism is weighing in; they're very uncomfortable with it, but I'd like to know what the people hear or what the people think about those bills.
I would echo that sentiment. I think we'll stick on the House side for a second. Representative Tiedemann, any further thoughts on that one?
Well, I think that with the COVID situation, it's really bringing forth the opportunity to change some things in statute. The co-ops can't meet virtually. And so there's a bill in there to allow co-ops to do that. Nonprofit churches can't meet because it may be in their bylaws. But I think the bylaws are being changed, but how do you change them without people being there? Last week, Ascension Lutheran, we had our annual meeting done by Zoom. We had 114 people on. People could communicate, and as long as they can orally communicate back and forth, I think it's very doable. It took about the same amount of time with voting and everything to complete our annual meeting this year that it took a year ago. So I think I'd like to see these bills. To answer your other question, LRC, when they draft the bills, they ask if you want to share them with other legislators. And if you don't check yes, then they can be drafting bills kind of like the same way. And they don't necessarily get together and say, yeah, Representative Reed has a bill that says the same thing. Do you want to get together? So they may be slightly different or tweaked. And I'd like to put down, yes, share it with others that are drafting the same bill.
I guess one other comment on that is when I talk about reviewing that, if there's some good parts of those bills, we'll try to probably wrap them in. Mostly if they're conflicting, we'll try to get them wrapped into one bill. There'll be a major amendment. And then I think that helps get it through local government. So there's work to be done with those bills.
Well, just to weigh in for a moment here. It's amazing how quickly we've all adapted to technology. It's been boom. I'm amazed at how well the committee meetings have been run at the Capitol, where people are testifying virtually. It used to be on the phone, and now all of a sudden they're in their living room and talking to a committee. And so it's good, but on the other side of things, kind of miss the old days where we talked to each other face to face and just the give and take. And I know there's a lot of efficiency in the technology. I get all that, but we're human beings and we ought to be around each other and know each other better. And so let's get through this bump and get back to meeting as a group again. Thank you.
If I could just one more thing, and sometimes we get on bills that we're passionate about that are ones that we've brought forward, and then there's times that bills come to us from a group of people that say, will you carry this? And they come to me quite a bit for local government, and necessarily just because we're priming it doesn't mean that it's our issue and we're going to drive it hard. Like I talked about that before, I think it's good to have this discussion. And as we say, you don't get married to your bill. This is one of those bills where it's like, let's have the discussion and see what happens.
Excellent. We're going to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that's come up this year is the governor's merging of the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. We're going to start with Senator Smith on this. Do you support that move? If so, why not? So discuss that idea.
Well, I appreciate the question, and I'm not surprised it's come up today. It is one of those issues that all legislators are hearing about quite frequently. The arguments are from the ag people that if the merger is made between agriculture and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, if that merger is made, a lot of the ag people believe that'll give too much power to the environmentalists. And contrary to that, a lot of the environmentalists believe that if the merger is made, it'll give too much power to agriculture. And so there's that ongoing debate. I know the wildlife groups in South Dakota are dead set against the merger. That's just how it is. I sit on the committee that's probably going, I chair the committee that is probably going to entertain that bill right out of the gate. Not bill, but it would be a resolution, whether you concur or not with the merger. And I'm going to go back to what I said a little bit ago about the advice I was given by a sage legislator, Mr. Tiedemann, who said, keep your powder dry. Because if you know, here's the deal. I kind of know how I feel on it right now. And I know I'm continuing to seek information. And so I'm cautious about all this. I continue to, I appreciate people saying, hey, look, this is the reason why you do it, or we need to do it. Here's what I really know in life is that the earth was here a lot longer than when we got here. And we showed up 150 years ago. And so I think we need to continue to take care of the earth. As I shared with somebody high in the agriculture department 2 weeks ago, one of the great embarrassments in this state is the state of the Big Sioux River. And that ought to be a point of emphasis. And so keeping my powder dry for now. I'm sure this is going to prompt a lot of emails from the Brookings people, but that's okay. And stay tuned.
Representative Tiedemann, any words from you on that one?
Well, I agree with Senator Smith. I think we need to keep our powder dry. I want to hear, if the resolution does come forward, I think I want to hear what's going to be taken away. Are we going to be doing some things that will remove some of the environmental checks? I think people have to understand that Department of Ag is not just a promotional group. It's all regulatory as well. You buy your pesticides because it's run through the Department of Ag. You have your dairy plants and dairy producers' farms inspected by Department of Ag, and that they're inspected twice a year. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources inspects the waste management system. So I think there's value in kind of talking together as a joint department. But the critical point is that we're not going to be giving up some of the things that have happened. If you look at the impact on our Sioux River, the Missouri River, et cetera, other rivers in the state, the adoption of minimum till and no-till has had a huge impact on the maintaining the quality of those rivers, as well as reducing the number of pesticides that get into the water. So I think there's value in looking at the total package. And I want to hear the debate before I actually decide if I'm voting yes or no.
Representative Reed.
You know, I see we got a few more questions we want to get to. And so the best way for me to say this is I agree with what both the senator and the representative are saying.
Perfect. We're going to take a little shift. We want to make sure that we get an update on the bioprocessing bill yet today as well. So whoever wants to start that, feel free.
Should I go ahead and start off on that, Representative Tiedemann? So you're going to see the bills that they are dropping here. You'll be able to see them this next week. We have the bill. Most of our bills had to be dropped by last Friday. Now we each can do 3 more bills up until next Wednesday, I think it is. And so we've been finalizing this. It's moving along quite well. You know, the project changed, and kind of at one time we were talking about having 2 buildings together. That other building didn't work. That was going to run out in the research park at this time. So we've got it down to a single building. We've really been working through the cost. This has to be a public-private partnership. And so we're really working on seeing who we have come in on the private side. to get this done because it will benefit businesses we have in the state. At the same time, it will grow businesses. And so basically, it's going to be the Bioproducts Institute because it's about products that are going to come out of from our, the stuff we grow here in South Dakota. So it's going along well. It's going to be part of that grand bargain. There's things that they want out in Rapid City. There's things they want in Sioux Falls, and this is what we want here. The mines needs a building. There's some programs that want to be started at USD. So it's all going to be part of this grand bargain. But I feel it's going very well. And we have a very good chance of getting it. It flew through to get $1 million last year for planning. So while everybody else is throwing a lot of these projects out, we're laying down a full report on what can be done in this Bioproducts Institute. We have what the building's going to look like. We have the floor plans that have been really worked through. We know how much equipment's going to cost. We really have the information. I guess shovel ready can be a term that's used. Yeah, we are shovel ready with this project if we can get the funding.
Either Representative Tiedemann or Senator Smith, do either of you want to comment, or should we try and keep going?
Just quickly, I think there will be two bills. One bill will be addressing the dollars needed for the building, and the other bill will be addressing the needs for the personnel, i.e. the researchers. If you have an empty building, it doesn't serve anything in getting things done for adding value to the products that we have in the state, either it being corn, soybeans, or our trees out in the West.
My comment, I couldn't add anything on to what Representative Reed said, but there is an issue that he spoke about. Every time you turn around, here comes a new bill being dropped for some project somewhere. I don't even know the total amount of requests made by the various legislators. I saw one this morning, and I communicated my thoughts to Representative Reed and Representative Tiedemann about a new building at Mitchell Technical College for precision ag, and hadn't seen that one before. And everyone has all these great ideas to improve their lot, and so it's just remarkable. This want list out there, and so we're going to have to go through and pare this thing down to something manageable. But we pretty much understand the priorities of Brookings and South Dakota State University.
Thanks for your thoughts on those, guys. We're going to take several questions here related to House Bill 1076, the birth certificate bill sponsored by Representative Deutsch. If you would like to start with your thoughts on that, Representative Reed, why don't we start with you?
Sure, and I'm glad you asked me to go first here. And I voted against this bill when it was in the House. It's on its way over to the Senate. And so I'm sure Senator Smith will have a little bit to say about it because I know it's probably coming to his committee. But this is kind of hard for you to see, but it's a birth certificate. It's an official birth certificate that comes from the state. And what you have a hard time seeing down here at the bottom is there's amendments. So when a birth certificate is changed, or certificate of birth is the proper term for it, when it is changed, it's amended. So there's a paper trail to it. And so you can see what all these changes are that have been made. You can also get one, that you use personally for doing things that basically states, just the basics of your birth certificate. But there's a paper trail on it. So this bill was, I think, just all about, wanting to call out transgenders. I really do. And there's a process, when it's changed, that it can be followed. And so all of the arguments that were made on the floor, I think were not correct. I think that we need to stop doing these bills because it pushes people away from South Dakota. That's really the main reason why I voted against it. Besides that, it really doesn't do anything because it's going to be done in amendments anyway.
Either Representative Tiedemann or Senator Smith, any thoughts from you on that one?
Well, I agree with what Representative Reed said. I really questioned the true need of the bill. I think it took a lot of time away from some other things that we could have been working on. Again, why is it needed that you have to have your gender or sex identification to get a social security number? What difference does it make? What vital records are really needed that you have to identify that on? Those were the questions that we should have asked and maybe corrected some things from the past.
I guess it's my turn. With respect to that bill, I'm against it. Thank you.
I appreciate that, gentlemen. Next up is House Bill 1089, related to security expenditures and folks calling for information and transparency related to governor's security detail upon travel and things like that. Would you mind offering up your thoughts on that? We'll start with Representative Tiedemann.
Well, that's an interesting bill. I did receive a call yesterday afternoon asking why isn't this released? I think part of it is maybe not to draw attention to it. If the people were already on the state payroll, you have to question, are you spending time, protecting the governor out of state or protecting the governor in state? Was there additional dollars that went because of overtime, things of that nature? But if you're on a straight salary, you don't get overtime. So I question the why it's being asked, but I also say there's no reason not to disclose it.
Representative Reed, your thoughts?
I agree with what Representative Tiedemann was saying, although the public wants to know this. I think we should talk. First of all, let's back up. The governor deserves protection, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, whether it's in state, out of state. The governor deserves protection. The governor our current governor has a lot of national attention, and so it's caused some differences. Even because she came from the House, the Federal House of Representatives, security changed the day she walked in the building. Compared to the Dugard administration, and that probably needed to be done. And we've continued to improve security around the Capitol. So I'm actually happy that got started. I wonder is an overall number, and go back and see for different administrations what have been spent compared to now, and should that be justified? There could be more reasons that they do need different coverage. We can't get down to the level of getting information about kind of how she's being protected. And so there's a balance here. So it's good. I actually look forward to some of the discussion on this bill. It's getting a lot of attention in the press. It's actually getting political attention in the press too, which, takes away from what really should be done, because there were Republicans that were on the bill that dropped off the bill. And there's discussion whether they were pressured by the governor's office. All that is also swirling beside it. We kind of got to push all that out and say, what should the public really know, and how are we protecting, our governor, whether Democrat or Republican, he or she, and no matter what they're doing, how do we best protect them? Because they have been duly elected for the state and they're doing the people's work, and they need to be protected.
Senator Smith?
I embrace Representative Reed's comments wholeheartedly. I just like to know what's being shared that causes individuals to pull themselves off a bill. Obviously, they have information that I'm not aware of. A lot of people who run for public office, they love to use the word transparency because we want to know. And but a lot of times when they get into office, that isn't such a nice window anymore. And so I need to know. So I'll base my thoughts after I find out.
Thanks, gentlemen. I've had several questions kind of all in a group, so I'll throw it to you very generally related to marijuana legislation in the state of South Dakota. Expectedly, probably. One of those questions was how the three of you feel about using taxpayer dollars to essentially sue the voters or conscript public servants into suing the voters to overturn Amendment A. So I don't know who wants to start with that. That'll be a fun conversation. Senator Smith?
Yeah, let me just start. You know, we knew this was coming. I mean, and all of a sudden the rock is moving and moving, and now it's coming fast and furious. We're spending a lot of time on this, and so I think we're all struggling. I hear the will of the people. I do, especially with medical marijuana. It's pretty blaring, and so we are working fast and furious on this now because we know we need to. And with Representative Reed said a while ago, we talk about all these other bills, and it's unfortunate that we have all these other things to work on when something that a lot of people are talking about, we ought to have focus on and a lot of time talking about it. And so I just hope we get it right. Thank you.
Representative Reed.
Well, specific to the question, should we be spending taxpayer money on this? Let's not forget that we have this great 3 branches of government, and there are processes in place for balance, and there is the opportunity for the courts to weigh in, and boy, we got to protect that. And so I never fall into that argument of, like, we're wasting the taxpayers' money, you know, because this is just going to go, you know, to the court system. Well, that's the way that this system works, and it's a great system. So I'm not, how much that has to be spent on this really isn't, I mean, I don't want it to take away everything that's going to education or something like that, but I just think it's part of the process. I will say somebody drops the same, well, not the same bill, but puts a medical marijuana bill forward in this session, which I don't know has happened, and then, and recreational, that, you know, is within reason, I'll probably vote for it because the people have spoke, you know, and maybe that's a better way of going through this than what the courts, you know, cause. A lot of these initiated measures come in, and it really is one group what they want to do, and it's in their agenda. And when the question's presented to the people, it's, do you want medical marijuana or do you want recreational marijuana? And you don't get into the specifics. So while you watch us go through this process, and I don't know if we'll get it done this session, special session, you know, or we're going to have to hold off for a while just to make sure we get this right. You know, be patient with it, because my feeling is most of the folks out there, most of the representatives out there have said, okay, the tea leaves, you know, we know what's going on here. They want it, but we got to figure out what's the best way of doing it for South Dakota. And so I guess those are my general comments on what's happening with it.
Representative Tiedemann.
Well, it's an interesting question. Should we be using tax dollars to fund this? I would assume that whoever moved forward had some degree in law and knew whether or not they could use those tax dollars to do it. If they didn't, then somebody else has to file a suit against them for expending tax dollars inappropriately. I think that I do agree with what Representative Reed said. We have 3 branches of government. This is one step to see whether or not Amendment A is constitutional. On the other hand, I am 26. I think we need to move forward to put in place some of those things that are in that bill, deciding some of the rules that need to be done. I mean, that's in that initiated measure that says we need to do those things. And so until that is put forth as an alternative that we're going to implement a total separate bill from that, we need to follow the will of the people.
Thanks. Thanks for your thoughts on that, gentlemen. That was probably the last question we have time for, so we're going to wrap it up. Thanks to the attendees for providing their questions. Of course, there will be additional forums, and some of these questions can be addressed there, or certainly reach out to your senator and representatives to ask those questions to them personally. We're going to proceed with closing remarks, and we'll start with Representative Tiedemann.
Well, thank you for the questions today and the opportunity to visit back and forth. These next week is going to be very intense. It's 5 days long. Hopefully we can all keep everything under control and move forward. But this is when the bills all have to be dropped, put in place, and then we will start moving through the committee process. The committee process is extremely valuable because that's where you don't necessarily have to make it a good bill. If it's not the right time for the bill, the committee needs to do their due process and take care of it appropriately. That will save time on the floor and give us more time to really engage in how we're going to spend that $300 million one-time dollars. Thank you.
Representative Reed.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. With 42 online, I think that's terrific. I look forward to all the people that can watch this. I know there were some open questions yet, so the next one we have, please come back with that or contact us personally. As I always say, talk about it. Tell me where you're from. I really work hard. If you do send me on my legislative account an email, you're going to get an automatic response that I read them all, but I can't respond to them all. But I've been pretty happy so far that I've been able to keep up with responding to District 7. Here and there, I might have missed one, but I really try hard. I know it's even someone tweeted out, hey, I actually got a response from Representative Reed on this issue. So I'm really trying hard to do that. But tell us, where you're from. I zip to the bottom and look for address or whatever, or just tell us right in the beginning, I'm a constituent of District 7. And that really helps us. And then tell us what you think versus form letters. I look forward to all the input. It's going to be an exciting here a couple weeks as we're working through some of these bills. It's great to be able to work with Representative Tiedemann. Got so much knowledge there. I've had a neck issue, and so normally I'm wearing a brace. I haven't been able to drive. I've been able to ride there and back with Representative Tiedemann. Great to hear him talk about the session. Haven't had that much one-on-one time with somebody who's had so much knowledge. And Senator Smith is the hardest working guy out there now. When he told me all the committees that he was on, I just fell over. I don't know how he's getting all that work done, but he's out there working really hard for all of us.
Thanks, Representative Reed. We'll close it out with Senator Smith.
I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can.
No worries.
It's shocking the number of emails. I mean, on top of all the other things that you have to study, the time that you spend under the dome, and then you go back to your room and you see all these emails. And I laughed because I counted it up from the time that we gavelled out yesterday to right now. I've had 232 emails. And I try, as Representative Reed, I try to respond as much as I can. But I got to tell you a cute one. Yesterday morning, I was going through these, and there's 8th grade kids out of Groton. They're in a civics class. And I see Representative Reed smiling. And they ask questions about certain bills. And I love the fact that these kids and their teacher are engaged in the process, and they ask you about certain things. And so there were 5 of them sitting there, and if they know a soft legislator that answers questions, they go after that legislator. So if you answer them, you're going to get more. Anyway, this one young lady asked a question, and I responded. Didn't think much of it. And then she wrote back, I got it yesterday afternoon. She says, "What time do you get up? Aren't you tired?" Because I wrote her back at 4:37 in the morning. And I never really thought about it because I've always been an early riser. And so a lot of challenges, and I'm going to say this. I'll probably make some mistakes, but they are not mistakes of the heart. There'll be mistakes because maybe things are coming too fast. And I've learned that nothing is fatal out there. With respect to your votes and the like. And I appreciate the fact, I see this over and over again. I cannot believe I get to sit in the Senate chamber, the greatest and last debate chamber of all of South Dakota. And I look down on my desk and I see my name and it says Brookings. I get chills just thinking about it. I just appreciate the opportunity to represent the people of this district. The only thing better than sitting in that chamber is walking around Hy-Vee. And and seeing and hearing from all the people there. So thank you everyone for listening this morning.